Oh,
I feel like Stone Cold every time that comes on.
right. You come marching
Yeah,
down
right.
somewhere. I don't know. I'll come marching from the dining room. You come
Right.
marching into the basement.
Right.
So, hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to episode 156 of Mirrorless Minutes. Tonight,
Nice.
we're going to be talking about what, Jerry? What are we going to talk about tonight?
Camera gear.
Camera gear. And I think this is a... Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, and what we use when we shoot our different genres of photography.
Yes. It's kind of something that... it's kind of a regular question I get asked. What do you take with you? And, you know, the most popular setting, I guess, for a lot of people that are newer to photography, what are your settings? And do you ever see those posts, Jerry, where people jump in someone's stuff for asking what settings are?
Or what lens they used, or what camera did you use? Or, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Shoot, I'm guilty of that myself. You know what I mean?
So I will say I'm not going to jump in anybody's business ever for asking what equipment I used, what my settings were. I think everybody knows that the situations are always different. So I might give you a set of settings and they're not going to necessarily apply to you. But if you look at the light and kind of get a feel for atmospherically maybe what was going on, then my settings might make a little sense. And then if you find yourself in a close or similar situation, you could probably start off with those settings.
Right.
And adjust them.
Settings. I never pay attention to settings because
you know what you're doing.
No, because like I could give you proper exposure settings.
Yeah.
But a lot of times when I shoot, I'll underexpose purposely or I'll overexpose purposely. Because I see. Remember when we were out this weekend and I pulled my phone out, I was like, today was a good day to check the phone trick. You know what I mean? And I pulled it out because I know there was some detail out there. So I'm going to underexpose a little bit so I can make sure I can get that detail.
Yep, exactly.
And if I was to give somebody perfect exposure settings, then your image might not be as moody. You know what I mean?
True. So I mean that's probably something we could talk about. We can throw it in tonight, or we could do a whole show on that, talking about when the proper exposure isn't what you want. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because it's a technique, you know, and it's probably a trick a lot of people don't consider, maybe.
Right.
You know, I mean, what are you told right out of the gate? You know, everything should be properly exposed, you know.
Right.
And sometimes that's not the look we're going for.
Mm-hmm.
So let's give a little round of hellos. So, hey, Steve is out there. Looking forward to it. So am I. You know, I love to talk about what I'm using and why I'm using it. So that's always fun. We got Bob here tonight. What's up, Bob? I didn't call you Robert tonight. But I'm only a couple of sips into my bourbon. We'll see what happens in about 20 minutes. Yeah, we got Jeff on here tonight. Zim44. Zim44, he has a new lens sitting in his shopping cart. And he's going to like that when he's looking at the 40 to 150 Pro.
Oh, nice. So great lens. That was probably one of my favorite.
That's an amazing lens. And it doesn't get enough airtime.
It doesn't.
In my bag as much as it should. And we got Mr. John Thomas.
I use that way more than my 7-14.
Yeah. It's always fun when my mom shows up.
Yeah,
hey,
she made
going,
it.
Mom? And we got Steve Blakely on. What's up, Steve? All right, so you want to jump right into this? Do we want to start talking about our bags? It's funny. Let me just say this real quick. I'm going to talk about bags. I'm going to pick up my bag, and I'm going to pick up my other bag. Jerry, like, I'm going to do like this and pick up my bag. Jerry could just be like this.
Right.
So anyways, I'll let you jump in first, Jerry. Let's talk about...
Well, let me grab my bag. Hold on so I can show my bag.
Literally, he carries a bag this big, and that's all he needs.
This here is typically the bag I carry everywhere I go.
Yeah.
I can fit 1 or 2 lenses in here. I have my filters, my shutter release cable, and I'm good. Sometimes I can even get a tripod in there. I got my little Manfrotto tripod, the little small one.
Yeah, yeah.
That'll go in there too. I can get all my stuff in that one backpack. And I mean, granted, I'm not shooting wildlife,
Right. Yeah.
because that's a different ball game. But for what I shoot, I typically have 12 to 40, or 28 to 75, whatever camera I'm using. It's
Yeah.
that same range.
Yeah.
That's probably one of my favorite lenses because that's the do it all lens. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
I can shoot landscape with that and portraits.
What?
So I would say last year, all of my portraits were shot 28-75 or the 12 to 40.
Yeah. What cracks me up is, so side note here, Jerry and I have been talking about taking off and doing like a photography adventure. And we've been looking, all over the United States, looking at like New Mexico. I've got my headset in New Mexico, and we've been talking about that.
Aliens.
And Jerry says, yo, we should go and just take the Pen Fs. I'm like, I had a panic attack when he said that. I can't even imagine going with the bag he carries.
So here's the thing. Dude, if I got just a Pen F, I might not bring a bag. I fit one lens in my pocket and the camera around my neck. With the pen, ideal would be the 12 millimeter.
Yeah.
And probably the 75 to 300.
Mm.
I don't have the 12. I want the 12. I got the 17-1.8.
Yeah.
If I can get the 12, I definitely want the 75 to 100. If I can get that, I'm good. I don't need anything else for the pen. You know what I mean?
So I just have this weird feeling that if we did that, if we went and you took just the pen, you would be, as I open my bag, yo, let me grab that lens real quick. Yo, let me borrow that one real quick. Because I can't do it. I can't go with just that small of a kit. I just
make it work, man. I mean,
yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
you're disciplined. I can't.
What here's the thing too, is like when the viewer is not there with you, the viewer does not see what you see.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So you create the image.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, just there was when I first started shooting it, I had a 50 mil and a fisheye.
Yeah.
That was it. So I shot 50 mil for everything, and then when I wanted something crazy wide, I'd pull the fisheye out.
Yeah.
I rocked that for a good 8 months maybe before I bought another lens.
Yeah, I have this problem where I will go someplace, and let's say I did what you said. I brought the pen, and I would bring the 17 because I only shoot primes on my pen. So I'd bring the 17. I'd probably bring the 12 and like the 300 because they need something with some reach. So
you're the dude that we're hiking and you got an 85 mil because you might need it.
Yes. But and it sucks because let's say I went with you and I just took the 17 and the 12 or something, whatever. I mean, I don't have it, or the 45, whatever. I would see a scene where I thought, damn, the 7 to 14 would have been so good right here. And I will let that mess with my head. And I can't stop doing that. I look at what I could have gotten instead of, I mean, I'll shoot and I'll make do with what I've got. But there's going to be this little part right here in my heart that says, dude, you could have got a killer shot if you'd have had something super wide or something super long.
Right. And I've done that before. I don't let it bother me, though. I mean, it is what it is,
Yeah.
If it bothers you that bad, go back and get it next time.
Yeah. So Beta Pixel says, he's with me. He needs his bag. Amen. Amen. And Walter's throwing up the peace sign.
Whoa.
And Bob panics like me. He's like, I'm going to take everything and the kitchen sink and everything else with me. I can't get out of it. So
that's too much shit to carry around. Look, Dave Barron. I can always spot Dave Barron's from the parking lot when he's on the pier.
I've seen his backpack
because his backpack is freaking enormous.
Yeah, true.
And then he gets it like, and then he's hunched over walking. I'm like, come on, man, that's not fun.
Yeah. Okay, so we know a little bit about just kind of how we are, but let's talk about your bag. Let's talk about what's in that bag when you went. We went the shooting this past weekend together.
Okay.
Let's talk about how you travel for
So this
land.
weekend I had the bag you just saw, and I brought my Sony A7R2. I had the 18 millimeter 2.8 on the camera, and I also brought the 70 to 200 G Master, the F4, the
Okay,
G lens. It's not the G Master, it's the G lens.
gotcha.
Um, I had a 10 stop ice ND filter, $20 filter in my bag,
Hmm.
and my shutter release cable.
Nice.
And I think a couple step up rings in case I wanted to. I keep the step up rings in there just in case I have a different lens with me. That way I can use the filter.
Sure, sure.
And that's it. And a couple cloths and extra batteries. That's it.
You travel light.
Yeah,
You
man.
really do.
That's all I need.
So that 18 millimeter that you're shooting with on the Sony, that's the Zeiss
That's the baddest. Yeah.
baddest? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So 18 mil on full frame. That's pretty freaking wide. And
Yeah.
that
It's
Zeiss lets you screw on filters too, right?
yep. Yep.
Nice. Yeah, that's definitely comes in handy. I know that's he's not on the show tonight, but Mark Miller was with us and he was using that new lens from Nisi, the 15 millimeter. And that's also super wide and allows, thread on circular
Right.
filters.
Right. That's the way to go. In my opinion, that's the way to go.
Yeah. For
Screw
sure
on
for long
filters.
exposure. Yeah.
Screw on filters are so much less of a pain in the ass. You know
Way
what I mean?
convenient. I mean,
Oh yeah.
I have to take a whole separate little
Right.
bag with all my square filters. Now, granted, there's no substitute for sliding in a graduated on circular. You're kind of stuck with wherever it's the graduation's at.
Right. Right.
But the convenience for long exposure, you're just throwing on. You just need an ND filter, so that
Yeah.
screw on filter is the way to go.
Right. For sure.
So you said your is that your typical like landscape and just kind of out and about like nature
Yep. Yep.
kind of kit?
Yep.
Yeah.
Something wide and something long. You know what I mean?
Yep.
I got
Yep.
everything covered, and like I
Yeah.
said, I make do.
Yep. So I decided I would break down what I'm going to share tonight into like kind of two genres. um, and so I primarily shoot, you know, nature, landscapey kind of things. And then I like to shoot wildlife when, the opportunity presents itself, or if I know that there's something to see and where there is to see it, then I'll pack a kit accordingly. So I'll share what I take if I'm going to shoot. Let's say if I'm coming up to Muskegon to shoot the snowy owls or the eagles or something like that, or the fox kits in the spring. So this is the bag that I'll bring. So this is it's a
I
pretty
can't
good
see
size
you.
bag, right? It's like there. So in this bag, I have the EM1X. I've got the 40 to 150. I've got the 300 Pro F4, and I've got the 12 to 100. And there's a lot of overlap in there, I know. But
Like
also
you could leave that 40
the
to
40 to
150 at
150,
home, right?
right?
But you never know, Jamie. You never know when you
Well,
might need
okay.
it.
So here's my rationale for why I have that, even if I have the 12 to 100. So while shooting wildlife, shallow depth of field isn't necessarily something you want, like especially if you're shooting birds, you kind of want some depth of field so that you make sure you get it in focus. I've been in plenty of situations shooting birds where I can get close. And if I can shoot wide open at 2.8, it becomes very portrait like. Um,
Right, right,
and again, I said so wildlife doesn't necessarily always mean I need a ton of reach. That 40 to 150, and actually all of Olympus's lenses, but I really like the way the 40 to 150 looks. Using it sort of as a telemacro. I know it's not a true macro lens,
right.
but that's kind of one of my go-tos, and it focuses really quick. So that's kind of my go-to wildlife kit, I guess you could say, is going to be the EM1X, the 300, both the teleconverters, the 40 to 150 and the 12 to 100. The 12 to 100 just kind of stays on the camera all the time.
Right. That's a
That's
good
like
lens. I like that one.
that lens is amazing. It really is. And I say it over and over and over again. When Olympus first told me about the lens and they sent me the lens, my first thought was, who's gonna want this? It's f4, and I was kind of brainwashed by the whole you need fast aperture and
Right. You're shooting that in the daytime. Yeah, you don't need
yeah,
that extra light.
and man, it's so sharp. So that's kind of my kit number one. That's my animals and that's my critters and wildlife kind of a kit.
Right.
Do you have any other kits that would kind of like be your go-to? I know you shoot more than just landscapes.
Um, Not really, man. I mean, I'm gonna show you some portraits that I shot this past weekend with at 18 millimeters.
Mm.
Um, Try to get a little more creative with it this time and do something little different.
Well, damn.
Um,
I thought you were gonna have two kits. I gotta show two.
That's right.
I'll show my second kit.
All right, do that.
And okay, so this is how I bring this stuff around, and it was stupid because if I bring this when I'm about to grab, I think I need to remember to always have like a bag to put things into. So I disconnected my earbuds, so
Oh,
I
is that
can't
your
hear
that's your
myself talking.
case?
But so anyways, I have like a Pelican case that I got from Harbor Freight, and it's sitting right here. And this is my Sony kit. And this is not what you want to take when you're out hiking in the woods or whatever. So in this kit is it's the A7 III, and basically, like, I don't know, would they be called like the Tamron Trinity of lenses? It's
Yeah.
the 17 to 28, 28 to 75, and was it 75 to 180?
180. Yeah.
But then I also have in here on the body right now is the ultra wide that I've got, which is the Samyang. It's a 14 mil f2.8. It's the autofocus version, which actually is a pretty incredible lens for as cheap as it is.
Yeah, that's a nice piece of glass.
And in case I have to randomly shoot a portrait when I'm out, so I bring the Viltrox 85 millimeter 1.8. Again, another great cheap lens, like $400 for an autofocus 1.8 lens on Sony. So, and then my girlfriend, she's in the chat room bragging about one camera, one lens. Haha.
All right, there you go.
Well, you and Jerry can go hang out and shoot because, damn it, I can't do that. So my girlfriend in the chat room, Shelly, she did a shoot for some people over the winter time, and they got a hold of her like a month later or something and said, "Hey, would you happen to need some Nikon lenses? I saw you use Nikon." And she said, "Yeah, sure. I'll take them." So she met up with them and they gave her like a handful of lenses. And one of those lenses was this fisheye. It's a Russian, it's a Zenitar. It's a fisheye. And so now I have a fisheye for full frame, and it's a I don't remember it's a 2.8, and then you can stop it down to f22. But I mean, I think I keep it on 5.6, and everything's in focus from basically an inch from the front of the camera to infinity.
Have you done much shooting with that?
I shot actually at Point Betsy when we were up there this weekend, and one of the photos that I'm going to share was shot with it.
Okay.
And
you must have did that when I was off rock hunting.
Yes. Yeah, you were doing long exposure, so that's when I did that. But yeah, so this is my other kit. This would be what I've been using for landscapes more and more. I've been shooting with the Sony more and more for landscapes. I like the aspect ratio, and
it's a little wider. Yeah.
Yep, it's wider, and I feel like there's more detail in, I think, in the full frame a bit, even though the megapixel count isn't that much greater than it is on the Olympus camera. It's a little bit, I have a little more room to crop, even though I don't crop too much. But I do have to straighten horizons a lot, so that forces a little bit of a crop. And so I'll just tell you guys this. if you're ever out shooting with me, you will see this is how I shoot. I have this weird thing where my head is on an angle all the time. I don't know what that is. So I have my head tilted. I have to remember to keep my head straight. So
Right.
anyways, if I don't have the level turned on in my camera, everything I shoot is crooked.
I do that all the time myself. Now, there's times I find myself I'm shooting like this, and I look at the picture and I lose half the goddamn picture when I
When you crop it
fix
to
it. Yeah,
straighten.
when I straighten it out.
Yeah, it's funny. So I think Shelly might be right. I like the haul stuff. I think in a past life I was a Sherpa or something.
Right.
But yeah, so that's kind of my two kits. You know, I've got a wildlife kit that's it's always really consistent, and currently landscape kit is basically that whole Sony bag. If I really narrowed it down and put stuff in a backpack, though, the Sony would be the body. It'd be the 17 to 28 and the 28 to 75 and the 75 to 180. So those three lenses would cover everything though.
Right. Yeah. I mean, yeah, for sure.
But if I did it with Olympus though, landscape, it's going to be probably the EM1X, probably fewer lenses. So the EM1X, the 7 to 14, the 40 to 150, and maybe the 300. And I know 300 sounds like why would you take that for landscape? But if you've spent any time out west, uh, a lot of the things are huge and far away. And you want to, I like compressing background.
Yep.
So I'll use a
I would agree
telephoto
with
for
that.
that. But so there's the go tos. You want to talk a little bit about like starting points when you're out shooting? Again, I know every situation's a little different, but let's use this past weekend as an example. Like, where did you start off with? Did you? Well, I know you said you don't pay attention to settings, but I know you have an idea in your head of kind of where you started when you got there, like knowing what you wanted to do. So if somebody went out, let's say Jerry, this in the wintertime on a really overcast day and it's a snowy area, like where would you start?
I mean, as far as my settings,
Yeah, I mean, just a starting point.
man, I I mean, just that's a hard one. I don't know.
Mm,
I would shoot until it looked good. I guess. I mean, I don't I don't know how to answer that question.
yep. So I think I've kind of figured out over time. I think you shoot a lot like Shelly does. She doesn't pay attention to settings. She knows what looks good in the camera and she knows how to get there and she doesn't need to pay attention to settings. Um, do you like okay, so for example, you said you got out your phone and you did the phone trick. And I
Right.
don't know if we talked about that on the show before. I think you might have mentioned it once before, but just in case you didn't, um, explain what that is. And that's at least a tip to give them an idea of what conditions they're shooting in.
Right. So basically, what I do is I pull my cell phone out and point it to the sky. If the sky looks like it's full of overcast and there might not be much detail in the sky, I'll point my phone up to the sky and bring the exposure down just a little bit, and then
Yep,
usually that'll show me what detail is out there and can be pulled out.
gotcha.
Um, so I do that quite a bit.
Yep. So so for people who don't know or have never done it, like on my phone, you get out the camera app, and Jerry's talking about kind of pointing up to the sky a bit, and then on my phone, I tap on the screen and it'll expose for the sky, so that usually darkens everything up, and then what you can see like on a day that looks
Clouds
overcast,
and
you can
yeah,
see
yeah,
shape.
yeah,
Yep. So that would tell people then starting point. If you did that with your phone and you underexposed, so
right,
Bob says you can do it with your camera too. Yes, if you've pulled it out of the bag. But let's say you got
right,
to your location, you jump out of the car. First thing you can do is pull the phone out, probably faster than you can pull your camera out.
right,
Expose for the sky, and so that's how Jerry knew when we got to Point Betsy. He pulled his phone out before anybody had a camera turned on, put it up at the sky, and then you could see on his screen that there was tons of detail in the clouds, but to your eyes, it just kind of looked like this gray mess.
Right.
So if you see that, then you know you could underexpose and bring out detail in the clouds, right?
Right.
And Mark has a tip, which is kind of like it's kind of the standard, I think, in shooting in the snow or on beaches, is bump the exposure up one stop to make the snow white. Um, if you have those two pieces of information, so we're talking about a snowy day, overcast, you know that underexposing the sky brings out the detail. Mark knows that overexposing the ground makes the snow white. This is where the filters come in really handy, like a graduated, because then if you tip your camera down, lock exposure on the snow so it's nice and white, bring the camera back up, you'll notice that the sky is completely blown out. But you slip your graduated filter in to darken it back up and expose that properly.
Or you just
Or
underexposed by a stop, and then bring the foreground out and post.
so my shot tonight that I'll share is done like that. But if you try that with snow, the color temperature gets jacked. And I have not found a way to fix it. And I've spent
You can fix
hours.
it in post.
Then I'll give you the raw files and you show me how it's done.
Alrighty.
So that's Jerry's tips. He doesn't know what he does. He just does it.
I just make it happen. I mean, I don't pay attention to settings. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yep. So I think, so for me, if I'm going out and shooting landscapes, I've been trying to put a lot more emphasis on like a greater depth of field. I spent a lot of time kind of stuck in that whole isolating a subject kind of frame of mind. So like if I had a piece of driftwood in the foreground or, whatever, rocks. Yeah. So Bob's asking about the eyedropper. I'll answer that real quick. Yeah. That's kind of like the 101 of white balance. It still doesn't correct for that quite the same. So like, again, like I said, I kind of spent a lot of time shooting wide open or wider and isolating subjects, but I've been spending a lot more time now. So my settings now, I kind of go in and I'm shooting at a minimum of f8. I'm shooting all the way up to like f16. I want more depth. I think I'm getting to the point now in photography where I want, with landscapes anyways, because I'm creating images with different layers to them, I want those layers in focus, unless it's something very unique, again, where like say you shot with a telephoto and by default your background's going to be out of focus, but generally like a wider landscape shot. So my starting settings are, I get up to the scene and I will instantly start stopping down to like f8, f11, f16 maybe. And another thing I've been doing more and more of lately too is focus bracketing. So basically, I'll take a shot. If I'm on a tripod, I'll take a shot of my foreground subject. I'll move my focus point up mid, way through the scene. Take another shot and then move that focus point further up into the scene so it's more off an infinity and take that last shot. I'm always shooting base ISO if I can. So ISO 100 on the Sony, 200 on Olympus. The Olympus, I don't have to stop down as far. The crop sensors tend to have like a much greater depth of field. So if I'm shooting at like, f8 on the Sony, I could probably be shooting at like f5, 6 and have the same depth of field on the Olympus. So that's definitely a bonus for landscape photographers shooting with the crop sensors. You get a lot better depth of field. Always shooting in RAW. I don't ever really worry about like white balance and things like that, because Bob mentioned that a minute ago, about using the eyedropper tool in Lightroom. You can generally fix white balance in post unless it's something totally obscure, like where you've got multiple different light sources like metal halides and sodium vapor and all that stuff. If that's the case, good luck fixing multiple.
Are you shooting RAW on your pen?
Yeah, I always shoot RAW plus JPEG on the pen.
Right.
My goal with the pen is
JPEG.
Yeah, I just want the JPEGs because I futz around with the color so much on that.
I posted a couple photos in the PenF group today that I just joined today, and those
Welcome to the
were
group, Jerry.
those were shot JPEG out of
Yeah.
my car.
Yep. Yep,
Well,
for sure. I guess like another thing that I do a lot too, as far as settings go, even if it's not necessary, I bracket a lot. Um, it's almost you don't need to
no,
necessarily
no,
for
you
most
definitely
situations,
don't on full frame. You definitely don't.
but like depending on the look that I'm going for, like if you're shooting in blue hour or just before the sun comes up, you can get a lot of different looks out of an image. If you have that extra leeway, again, like Jerry said, shooting like with the A7 III, I can take an image that's damn near black and just pop the exposure way up and basically make it look like it was daytime. So, but still, old habits die hard. So I still shoot a lot of bracketed shots. I like to have that
I used to
greater
make
control.
bracket shots out of a single image.
It's if you look at my YouTube channel, Jerry, from like 7 years ago, I have a video where I was taking a raw file
And
and
then changing the exposure on it.
yeah,
Right.
yeah.
I used
I
to do
look
that.
I look back at that and I wonder, did that make a difference? I should go back and revisit
Yeah,
that.
yeah. I
Try
mean,
it
yeah,
again.
it does.
Yeah.
I think it's. I don't. I'm not sure if it does anything to the quality of the image,
Yeah.
but I mean, you would think it's just like making the adjustment in your camera,
Right.
except you only had to take one photo instead of three. Yeah.
Kind of curious. We'll have to give it a shot. We should try
Right.
that sometime.
Right. So I'm kind of follow along the same lines as you
Yep.
when talking settings. If I'm shooting landscape and I'm not trying to single out a subject, I'll shoot f8 to f11,
Yep.
and then I'm always base ISO myself.
Yep. One thing
Um,
I've noticed with the Sony, once you start stopping down to like F11, F10, F11, F16, boy, those sensor spots really start to show up.
yeah.
And again, not really much of a problem on the Olympus that I had to deal with too much. So when we got back from our shooting this weekend, I had to go through. I took my lens off and got the sensor swab kit out and cleaned it again. I have no idea where the dust comes from on this thing, but it sucks. Wildlife settings, though. So since I talked about a wildlife kit, I might as well talk about that a little bit too. It is a part-time job, dude. It's like a full-time job. It sucks. So like, so some of my basic like wildlife setup, I guess. So if I'm talking about the Olympus kit that I have a setting on my mode dial that is set up for continuous autofocus tracking, shutter priority, sequential mode low, and I've basically got it set up so that it's. I'm trying to remember how many squares are in my grid that's set up. So I think it's like three rows of three. So I've kind of got this box in the center. And the reason I have that set up that way is if I'm shooting birds, which is kind of primarily the thing that I would be doing with that setup, I just know that I need to get my bird somewhere in that center box and get the half shutter press, and it'll lock on every time and track it. And then after that, it's up to me to be able to physically track the bird and keep them within my, field of view or whatever.
Right.
But, so again, shutter priority. I have my shutter speed set to, depending on the birds, if I'm shooting like eagles or something like that, I had a lot of luck at like 1/800th of a second. They do a lot of gliding. Same with owls. So I don't have to worry about too much blur from wing flaps or sudden movements. If it's other birds, smaller hawks and things like that, it's like 1/1000th of a second or 1200th of a second, depending on light. And then also I'm on auto ISO on the EM1X because at the end of the day, for me, it's about, making sure I capture the shot. And if I've got a little bit of grain, software is really good at pulling that out. So those are just kind of what I do. And then also my metering, depending on the lighting situations. Um, because birds, I run into too many situations where the bird is at a point in the sky, like if it's an overcast day in the winter, that's when I seem to shoot eagles and stuff the most, is the winter time. It might be overcast and cloudy, but the sun is still up there. And if you're pointed towards where the sun is at in the clouds, it's still bright. And so I end up doing spot metering so that when I'm photographing the birds, they're at least exposed. I don't care if the background is completely blown out of the water. It doesn't matter because, again, the subject for me is the birds. So I'll spot meter. If I'm not spot metering to get them exposed properly, then it's usually like center weighted metering. So those are some pretty easy settings. And I think they apply to like all the Olympus cameras, shutter priority, continuous autofocus tracking, or continuous autofocus works really well if you're going to be running, like parallel with you, if they're not like approaching or something like that. And then again, auto ISO and sequential low seems to work really good for me. I haven't done too much this year. A little bit of owl shooting. I think twice I've been out, and I have not yet really had an opportunity to get any good eagle photos yet.
I shot an owl this year. I'm not even a bird guy.
You what? And you're not? Yeah, yeah,
I'm not even a bird guy.
yeah, for sure.
I'd like to shoot owl, or I'd like to shoot more birds. This summer, I'm gonna shoot more wildlife this summer.
It's fun. I'll tell you what. Like I liked just going and literally just sitting somewhere. Like there are a couple of spots up your way that I know where you could go, and it's kind of like a meadow, like tall grasses and wildflowers and things like that. And there's woods at the edge of it, and you can sit in the woods, like in the shade, and then shoot out in the sun. And all these smaller birds are flying around and they're grabbing bugs and, chirping and mating calls and all that. And it's nice. There's nothing worse though than sitting in the sun for like 4 hours to get a picture of a little bird.
Were you with me when we were shooting that snake?
Yeah, Dave Behrens was there too.
Yeah, Dave. Yeah.
Yep.
That was fun, man. I enjoyed that.
It's a lot of fun just to go out and kind of see all the little things running around and shoot those.
Like I never thought I would be laying on the ground in front of a snake.
No. Yeah.
And he'd be let me take his picture. That was pretty fun.
Yep. So let's see, what do we got here in the chats here? Spring snakes coming back out. Yeah, the non-venomous ones for sure. So all this talk with Jerry about potentially going to New Mexico, he repeatedly talks about rattlesnakes and scorpions.
Yes, sir.
So Jeffrey's bag tonight. EM1-2, 7-14, EM1-3, 12-100, EM1X, 100-400. Holy cow.
Jesus.
Ice, sun, 2 F-35 stealth fighters and a B-2 bomber. Where are you shooting at? Holy cow. Nesting adult bald eagles, almost full moon, lots of waterfowl. So every camera got used in the 7-14 for time lapse and other things and everything else. You pack like I do, man.
Jeffrey goes hard, man. What do you say?
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Always thankful to give starting points, for sure. It comes in handy. All right. So before we get on to an image share, I think I'll talk just really quickly about like my newest gadget. And that's this big orange block of aluminum here. So I'm that guy that when he's out shooting landscapes, I like to shoot a lot of portrait orientation stuff. And generally I am rotating the ball head over and doing it that way. And it works. And the Vanguard tripods I'm using, the ball heads are good. They hold the camera steady, but I have had issues with like long lenses, and it doesn't matter what tripod I was using. You run the risk of some sort of creep happening with the ball head when you've got it over to the side. Yeah. So I decided to get an L bracket or an L plate, whatever you want to call it, for the Sony to start with, because it seems to be the one I'm shooting the most landscapes with lately. So this is the one from Legged Thing. This is the Ellie, and this is the Ellie short. They make another one, the Ellie long, I guess. I don't know what they call it, but it's just a longer bottom plate. I got the short because it still allows access to the battery door on the Sony. So So far, I like it. It's adjustable, so you just loosen up these Allen heads here, and the side plate is on these little metal bars. You can kind of see them right there. So you can loosen it and slide this out. It's notched so that you can kind of get in here and open these doors. But here's the problem. Um, if you don't have the plate slid out just a little bit, the doors won't open all the way. So if I want to have access to these doors, if I were shooting, video and had an external monitor and stuff like that set up, I'd have to actually have the bracket pulled out a little bit to the side. But I don't do that stuff. Really. I don't shoot a ton of video. So it's worked pretty good. It's Arca Swiss, grooves, easy to use. I'll tell you what, it saves a lot of headache to just loosen the ball head a little bit, flip the camera up, set it back down, tighten it up. Pretty happy with it. It's really good build quality. And they had a sale on Amazon, I think, for like Valentine's Day. I don't know why they would discount L-brackets on Valentine's Day, but they did.
So you could buy it for your wife and she won't use it. So you'd be like, fuck it, I'll borrow it.
There you go. Yeah. You could say, look what I got you, honey.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's fine. I'll take it.
Right.
But I'll admit, I was pretty excited that it comes in orange because the lens mount trim ring on the Sony
Right.
cameras is orange too. So
Right. It looks good.
it looks kind of cool. And I'm kind of getting into this like fetishy mode about sexying up my cameras. And I'll show you a video on that in a minute. But first, you want to do an image share, Jared? Do you want to share some photos?
Let's do it.
Do it.
All right,
And when I say do we want to share some videos, I'm talking about you.
Right.
Okay.
Alrighty, here we go.
There we go.
Here are my portraits I spoke of that I shot with the 18 millimeter Jessica. This was taken with the Sony A7R II, the Sony or the Zeiss Batis 18 millimeter 2.8.
Color me impressed that that's 18 millimeter and it doesn't look like it has that wide angle distortion to it at all.
Right. Because there's a trick to it. You got to keep her centered.
Gotcha. Kind of like a fisheye or any other wide angle lens for landscape. Keep the center of the horizon in the center.
And what you also want to do when you're shooting that wide for portraits is you want to try to maintain eye level.
Okay.
Because if you start getting too low or too high, then they start distorting.
Gotcha.
So as long as you can keep them pretty much centered, it just looks wide. I mean, you can see in the foreground how there's a starting the bottom right corner and the top or the bottom left and the top left are starting to bow a little.
Gotcha.
That's because I was close to the window, but
okay.
This is 18 millimeters and just trying to do something a little different. Same thing here, 18 millimeters again.
It's the suitcase wall. I love
that. Yep. Pretty much same thing. Just making sure I keep her center, and eye level.
Yep.
Natural light here. This bed is right up against one of those big industrial windows with all those white blocks.
Yeah. Okay. Gotcha.
So the lighting gets to be pretty amazing in that room. So
yeah,
this is all natural light. And again, shot with the Sony and the 18 millimeter. Betsy from the weekend.
I was there.
Yes, sir. This is 70 to 200.
Nice.
Did I crop this? No. Nope. This is pretty much straight out of camera.
Yeah.
I didn't do a whole lot to this. Remember I told you, man, everything looks black and white.
Yeah.
Pretty much straight out of camera, 70 to 200 at 200 millimeters. I'm going to guess this is probably f8, f11, somewhere around there.
So this is what we were talking about earlier when Jerry was talking about pointing his camera on his phone at the sky and exposing for the sky. You don't see it in this because he exposed for the scene in front of him. Yep. But there's detail in the sky. If he wanted to get crazy in post-processing, he could pull out like shapes and stuff in the clouds.
Yes, sir. And then we got this here. Now, this is actually not taking much later in the day, and you can see a little more detail in the sky here.
Yep.
This is a long exposure. This is 18 millimeters, and I believe this is 2 seconds.
Yep.
I like to see the
Mhm.
wisps in the water instead of making it look just like smoke. I rather catch some movement. So I usually shoot my long exposures between. If I'm shooting water,
Yeah.
I'm shooting between 1 and 2 seconds.
Yep.
If I'm shooting clouds, I'll shoot, maybe 10 to 20 seconds.
Yep.
Um, just so I can make sure I catch movement in them. And this is, I think, shot this one today.
Nice.
I was just driving around looking for. I saw the clouds are out, and I was like, "Yo, it looks like a long exposure day. Let me get in the car and drive around." So I was just driving and turn right, turn left, one of those things,
Yep.
and I saw this big tree right here, and I was like, "All right, I'm pulling over," and got out and set up in the middle of the street. And this is a 20-second exposure at f11. No, this is f16. Um, I had to bump. I usually don't like going that high, but I had to bump it up a little bit because the sun's just out of frame,
Yeah.
and it kept popping out behind the clouds, and it was destroying my photo. So,
Where's all your dust spots at?
hmm,
I don't know how you don't have any.
I wonder where they went. I
Were
and
there dust spots?
yeah, there was a few. I
Okay.
took them out in post.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so that's about it. I did tripod this. Oh, well, of course, long exposure.
Yeah.
Yeah, but here's a funny story. So you see the off the edge of the road there on both sides, the snow.
Yeah.
I also took a shot from that cornfield on the right, and I stepped 1 foot off the grass into the snow and sank to my knees. I was like, "What the hell?" I
Yeah.
could every time I took a step, I'd go in deeper. I'm like, "Shit!" That was a ditch on both sides of the road that was covered with snow. I went right in there today. I had snow in the tip of my toes. Not fun.
That's funny. So on the last show, I shared pictures of the Highland cows, and it was the
Right.
same way. I got out of my truck and started to walk towards the fence,
Mhm.
and I literally sank up to my crotch in the first step,
Right.
almost,
Right.
and I couldn't tip all the way over because my leg was all the way down. So I was
Right.
like, almost like doing the splits, stuck in the snow. So yeah, snowshoes might be nice to have. So I will share what I've been up to. All right, so I did a little bit of a Jerry. I actually shot people last weekend. So Shelly had a shoot, and I kind of participated in that. So we started off; they were going to be like corporate type headshots and stuff like that, and then we just can't continue with that. We have to just kind of make things fun, and just kind of it evolved from there. So um, I think Shelly got a lot of like great corporate looking headshots and things like that. I just kind of had fun with it. So this is shot with this is with the Sony, and I think I had on the Viltrox 85 1.8, and I'm using the Godox 8200. It's off camera left, and you can, if you look at her eyes, you can see the catch light in her eyes. Um, and I was using the trigger that's for the Olympus cameras because I got the Godox when that's all I had was Olympus, and the triggers off of the Sony. You just don't get TTL, which is no big deal to me. So all the adjustments are done manually at that point. Settings on this are probably it's ISO 100. I think I'm at like f8, and I think that the flash was probably at like 16th, I think, of the 16th power. And the flash is probably about like 6 feet away from her, maybe 5 feet away from her. It was at like not a ballet studio, but where they hang those like silk ropes from the ceiling and they like hang from those. It was one of those studios, and we just needed a white wall. So we kind of used what we had there, so that's what I was shooting up against there. The next shot again is another one of the people that we were working with. I know Jerry's shot.
What was that, Velvet?
Velvet. Yep.
Nice.
So
Oh shit.
I don't know what Jerry's doing. He's falling out of his chair. So again, after all the corporate type headshots were done, we just kind of played around and did other things, worked with the props that we had there. This was in a setting similar to where Jerry was sharing his photos from. It's an old factory in Grand Rapids that's been converted into a bunch of different spaces, one of which is the space that we're in. They also have like a rentable studio, photography studio space there as well. But just again, kind of put her positioned back up against the window there, and then tried to fill in as best I could with that Godox. Not too bad. I probably could have brought in the light a little bit closer and had it a little bit brighter, but I don't know. I'm not a people shooter, so I did what I could with what I was working with. Again, same thing. Viltrox 85 1.8 stopped down to probably again like f8 for this. Very similar settings to what I had before. I think I just had to bump up the power on the flash a little bit so that I could fill her in more. And then the next day went out with Jerry, Mark Miller, and Jerry's cousin Jared. And so this was at Point Betsy. And this is a shot of Mark Miller. Again, I mentioned it on the last show. If you're hanging out with other photographers, shoot each other. It's always kind of cool to be able to hand off pictures, to the people you're with of, pictures of them doing their thing. So I just wanted to give Mark a couple of cool shots. So again, it was a Sony day. So this is the Sony with the this is the 28-75 Tamron right here. And you got to love the water at Point Betsy. It's just the coolest colors.
Oh yeah, it's cool. Oh, there you go. I didn't see any of that out there.
So there was a little bit of blue ice at Point Betsy. This was on the other side of the lighthouse. There's this red building. I have no idea what its function is. I think it's the fog house because you can see that little
Horn.
Well, it's not little, that big black like horn sticking out of the building. So I'm assuming this is the fog house there. But again, what you see here, this ice is actually a bush that's just kind of wrapped in about 1,000 pounds of blue ice. And this was shot. I thought it was shot with with that Russian fisheye. It's not. This was shot with the Tamron 17-28. And this is just a series of images stacked together to kind of give me some blur. It's not really a true long exposure. It's a series of images stacked, and then I throw it in Photoshop and use a path blur to kind of exaggerate what little blur I got from just a handful of images.
It looks good though, man.
Thank you. Muchas gracias.
I think I'm gonna try that next time we go. I'm gonna try some bracketing or focus stacking.
Yep.
It's fun. I saw this shot right here. This is cool.
So this was I went out. So Shelly came down to visit yesterday, just from out of the blue, which was kind of a cool surprise to have her come down to my neck of the woods. So we just jumped in the truck and I took her driving around down like some crazy dirt roads where I had to have 4-wheel drive on the entire time. We almost went off the road a few times. But then on the way back, heading back, the sky just kind of lit up. So matter of transparency here, this sky was the sky that night. That sky wasn't over that barn. So that the sky that you see was actually off to the left of this shot. The sky that was over the barn had less clouds in it. So I love what I can do with software. So after I shot the barn, and this is shot with the 75-180 Tamron, after shooting the barn, I hurried up and switched lenses to the Tamron 28-75, set it at like 28 millimeter, and just shot the sky, knowing what I was going to do. So this is the sky using Photoshop's sky replacement to put the sky.
All right, hold on. What millimeters did you shoot the barn at?
The barn is at 180.
What is the sky shot
at? In the middle of the 28-75, so probably somewhere around 50.
That's freaking cool that you did that.
I just knew what I could do with the software, and I knew that if the timing had been different, those clouds would have ended up over where the barn is. I just said, screw it. I'm making them go there now.
Right. Right.
So that's kind of what I did with that.
So do you find that the sky replacement in
Photoshop.
Photoshop, is it better than the sky replacement in Luminar, or which one do you like better?
I honestly, they're about
I,
neck and neck.
I haven't tried the one in Photoshop yet.
They're about neck and neck. I think that you have a little bit. I feel like the AI in Luminars is a little bit better at horizons
Uh-huh.
on a complicated horizon. On a basic horizon, like that barn where there's really defined edges, either one, it doesn't matter. They both work. They both work. Same scene, except this was, I don't know, just a few minutes later or a few minutes earlier down the road from where that barn is. So, you're looking in the opposite direction of where that barn was. When the sky was doing this, I just decided to jump back in the truck and race down to where that barn was at. I've shot that barn a few times before. This is a bracketed shot with the Sony, and it is with the Samyang 14 millimeter 2.8, and this is at like f8. So that final bracketed shot, the one that gives you a really bright scene, I didn't know if it was going to hold together or not. It's a long exposure to do handheld with Sony. If it was the Olympus camera, I could have held it for like 4 or 5 seconds probably, and it would have been fine. But the Sony, you just don't have the ability to do long exposures handheld so well. But I lucked out with this one, and it all blended and merged well together. So, and this is pretty much, again, a bracketed shot, 3 shots at 3 EV and ISO 100. Again, I think I was at like f8 so that I could have, a decent amount of depth to it. It'd have been better as a bracketed shot, focus bracketed though.
Looks good though.
And that's that. Should I show him the video of the thing of the sexiness?
Yeah, why not? Hell yeah.
All right, cool. So if you follow me on Facebook or you're friends with me on Facebook, you've probably seen a video of my Olympus pen that I'm having modified. I'll show you what I'm doing with my Fuji, and I'm pretty stoked. And it's something that will be available probably to all of my viewers. I have no. I'll just tell you in a second. I'll just show you this video real quick. Pretty cool, huh? So
that is cool.
So and I don't know how well this comes through in the video on your guys' end, but it's basically like a I don't know the name of the pattern. I think it's called damask. It's like an old Victorian pattern, but in the center of the fleur-de-lis looking pattern, it's skulls. So a friend of mine that I work with at my day job, he's an artist. He did this. You probably can't. I want to show you guys what he makes. Hey, Google, turn on Michigan. And I don't know if you'll be able to see it. So you can see that Michigan sculpture over there. It's made out of wood and plasma cut steel. And so he makes things. He's really, really good at making beautiful art. Well, he has in his ownership a couple of lasers. One is a CO2 laser, which can do like light engraving. And then the laser that was doing that work is a fiber laser that can actually cut metal and engrave like deep into metal. So I gave him my Pen F, and he's putting that Gothic F, Gothic font F, or whatever you want to call it, on the front of the Pen F, kind of reminiscent of what the original film Pen F camera had.
Yep.
And I also gave him my Fuji, and on the top plate and the bottom plate, he's putting that damask pattern with skulls in it. It's actually engraved into the metal. And it's probably a service he's going to be offering. It's not probably, it is a service he's going to be offering to people. He can engrave pretty much anything. He's got a rotary setup, so he could actually put a pattern on the barrel of your lens or around your lens hood if you wanted. Really cool stuff. His website is still being built right now. And he's kind of using a lot of my equipment as a test for what his capabilities are, but it's going to be a service he'll offer. I don't have any idea on pricing and stuff like that yet, but if you want to make your stuff uniquely yours, and I know when I showed the video of the Pen F on Facebook, Bob here in the chat room said, well, there goes the resale value. Sure, for some things, definitely it will affect it.
You never sell a pen.
Right. Or potentially it might make it, for some people, a more valuable commodity just because it's very unique. It's kind of a one-off piece.
Yep.
So if you got questions about that, feel free to reach out to me anywhere on social media, and I can get those questions answered as best as possible from the gentleman who's doing this work for me. And of course, when they're done, they should be done. The pen is done. The Fuji, that was from last night. He sent me that video, and I think he's working on it either tonight or tomorrow. Should be done tomorrow. So on the next episode, I'll show them off and talk about the experience or whatever. And again, if you have questions, just reach out on social media, and I'll try to get those answered for you. But I'm pretty pumped. It's pretty.
They look good, man. Them things look cool.
I can't wait. It's pretty exciting stuff for sure. And yeah, Russ, definitely right. Make it easy to ID because there will never be another Fuji like that one in the world for sure. And honestly, I don't know if I've seen a pen that legitimately has it etched in the way I'm getting mine done. I've seen them done with decals.
Right.
And I've seen them laser etched, but mine is actually laser engraved. It's deep. The video that he shared with me of how deep it is engraved was almost shocking. I didn't know how deep he could engrave. And actually, what the hell? I'll show you guys that video too. I think I have that handy here. It's pretty cool. Let me see here. So here's the pen. I'll show you guys that. Pretty cool.
I gotta get that done in mine, man.
So when I get it back, I bought some UV epoxy or UV resin, and I've got some black alcohol ink. It's a dye for that resin, and I'm going to mix that up, and I'm going to put it into the engraving, and then cure it with a UV light, so it'll actually be like an enameled F on the camera. That'll be pretty cool.
I'm gonna get 15 on mine, so it'll say pen 15.
There you go. I have no idea what that means, but cool. Oh, I get it now. Yeah, I'm not saying anything. You guys just visualize pen 15 and just.
We had when we played flag football one year, our team name was pen 15.
Oh boy.
And then we had it on the front of our jerseys, and every time we'd show up, they just shake their heads at us.
Well, I guess. All right. Well, I guess that's enough for tonight.
No, hold on. I got something I want to say.
What? Bring it.
You know what? You know something I want to get into that I haven't really done any of, and I know there's some Olympus shooters in here. I want to start playing around more with double exposure. Because I like the idea, and you can do some really creative stuff with it, but I haven't done much of it.
Yeah.
So if we got Olympus shooters in here that have messed around with that, maybe one of these episodes. I was gonna say, Jeffrey, I've seen some. Maybe we can share some of that stuff on the show.
Yeah.
And
And it applies to non-Olympus shooters too. A lot of cameras do that.
Right,
now,
right,
so,
right, right.
yeah.
That's something I want to start getting into, some more double exposure stuff.
Then maybe that's the
So,
next episode. Maybe
right,
we talk about it. Maybe we can get Jeffrey to come on again.
right. We should get him on here. Yeah.
Yeah. No. We don't want to just see, our ideas on it, Jeffrey.
We want to see yours, Jeffrey.
For sure. So how about that, folks? If we can talk Jeffrey into coming on either the upcoming or the following show, we'll do a double exposure episode.
That's right.
And I agree, Jerry. It's a super cool.
It is. I've seen
technique.
some cool. So I've been seeing a few pop up in the Instagram Explorer page.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yo, that's really cool. And I know that the Olympus cameras do that in body. So
yeah,
I'm like, I want to start trying that. Do that a little more.
Let's try it.
Let's do it.
All right, folks.
All right, now we're done.
So there you have it, folks. He's not as creative as us. Oh, okay. You're too humble. So yeah. So look forward to that on an upcoming episode for sure. Double exposures. And I know we talked about like a randonaut challenge and getting everybody out to use randonauting. You see how well that worked out. I don't think we really got anybody that shared anything with us. So maybe
we didn't even go do it.
I'm just trying to deflect. I'm trying to deflect onto them.
We'll do it. The weather's getting better out, man. It was crappy for a while. It was cold.
It is. So instead of the randonauting challenge, how about people shoot some double exposures? If your camera has it built in, give it a shot. There's no such thing as a bad one. It's art. So maybe share with us some of the shots you did.
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
We'll do a double exposure episode.
Jeffrey does good work on double exposures. Yeah, I know. That's why we want him on. So until the next episode, you guys take care. Thanks for tuning in and watching. Thanks for subscribing and hitting that bell so you get notified of when the next show is live and on air. And if you're listening to this podcast, take a minute, rate, review, give us a thumbs up. Tell your mom. My mom listens to the show and watches it. Yours should too.
I told your mom to make sure she was here tonight.
There you go. you and my mom talking offline. Jerry and I have a different discussion to have after the show. All right, you guys take care. We'll see you in 2 weeks.
Peace.